The universality and power of faith and doubt.
Here are 5 definitions of faith from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Belief and trust in and loyalty to God. Complete trust. Firm belief in something for which there is no proof. Something that is believed, especially with strong conviction. I have also included the word object. A person has faith in an object. The historical New Testament documents are written in Greek. The Greek word for faith is pistis, which, according to Bible Hub, tends to mean faith, belief, trust, fidelity, and faithfulness. You can also include loyalty. People use working definitions, which are definitions that are chosen for an occasion and may not fully conform with established or authoritative definitions. A working definition can be anything you want, and it could be good or bad. Faith is trust or belief in an object. Faith is belief in an object without proof. These working definitions clearly agree with Merriam-Webster's definitions. Faith is belief in an object without evidence. Clearly does not. What is the difference between proof and evidence? Proof is 100% absolute certainty in a proposition. It is absolutely true. I call this proof as 100% absolute certainty. But there is also proof as truth, which is arguments and or evidence for the truth of a proposition. Arguments and evidence can be true or false. The proper proof to use is proof as 100% absolute certainty. Faith is trust or belief, and faith is belief without proof as 100% absolute certainty are good working definitions. Faith is belief without evidence is bad. What do I trust? I have faith in the working definitions I have chosen, which are trust or belief, and I have supporting evidence, Merriam-Webster's dictionary. I have faith in Merriam-Webster's dictionary. If Merriam-Webster's dictionary is a book, that's something. If it's a web dictionary, that's an abstract object. A word of caution. Faith does not necessarily have to be complete, firm, or strong. And what do you mean by complete? Complete implies 100%, which implies proof as 100% absolute certainty. I have concerns about using the word complete to describe faith. Faith is not the absence of doubt. Faith refers to trust or belief, which are human virtues. Doubt refers to uncertainty, which is a human virtue. Faith is the opposite of distrust, disbelief, or unbelief. Faith and doubt are human virtues in an object. An object can be someone, something, an abstract object, an ideal. Christians have faith and doubt in their Christian worldview. A worldview is an abstract object. Atheists have faith and doubt in their atheist worldview, an abstract object. Science cannot have faith and doubt. Science is not the absence of faith and doubt. In the first clause, science refers to the scientific enterprise. In the second clause, science refers to the scientist. Scientists have faith and doubt in the scientific enterprise, an abstract object. Christian faith. Christian faith in the substance of things hoped for. Christian faith in the evidence of things not seen. In the first clause, the things hoped for are God's promises. The second clause does not mean there is no evidence. It's the things that are not seen. What are the things not seen? The resurrection and eyewitness testimonies. What is the evidence you have faith in? Historical New Testament documents. Something. Christians also have other proofs as truth. Faith is a presupposition that God might act in your life, but God might not act in your life. For a Christian, God is someone. For an atheist, God is an abstract object. Scientific faith. Scientific faith in the substance of things hoped for. Scientific faith in the evidence of things not seen and are seen because you don't have proof as 100% absolute certainty. In the first clause, those things hoped for are future scientific discoveries, possibilities, and progress. Referring to the second clause, scientists have faith in the scientific enterprise, the presuppositions of science, empirical generalizations in which Newton's laws, quantum physics, and the theory of evolution are 3 examples. They also have faith in themselves and their hypotheses. Empirical scientific evidence is proof as truth by arguments and evidence. evidence that is seen. The last part of the second clause refers to the fact that absolute scientific proof is a myth. A scientific hypothesis is an explanation that might be true, but it might also be partially true or false. A scientific hypothesis is proof as truth by arguments, but not evidence. Evidence not seen. A scientific hypothesis is an abstract object. Faith in the evidence of things you have seen. Faith in your spouse, someone. How do you know you can trust your spouse? It is based on your marital relationship. Faith in medical professionals, scientists, religious leaders, professors, politicians, someone. How do you know you can trust these individuals? It is based on your experiences with these individuals. But in all probability, you will trust your doctor more than you will trust any politician. Faith in the democratic process, an abstract object. Faith in democracy, an ideal. A skydiver has faith in a parachute. Parachute, something. Skydiver, someone. When a skydiver jumps out of the airplane, he has faith the parachute will work properly and in his ability to land safely. When he lands safely, he has knowledge which becomes reason and evidence to skydive again. The next time he jumps out of an airplane, he will be taking a leap of faith, literally. Faith in revelations, eureka moments, intuition, abstract objects. The only evidence is your testimony. A working definition for a revelation is revealed knowledge. This is the same for eureka moments and intuition. Healing power of faith, an ideal. The scientific how and why are unknown. Unlocking the healing power of you. Science is showing that how you feel isn't just about what you eat, do, or think. It's about what you believe. Studies suggest that if you pray, attend church on a regular basis, and mean it, you are mentally and physically healthier, you live longer, and you are happier. Prayer seems to actually work. The religiously unaffiliated can obtain this power, and some do. Meditation. Faith in the power of forgiveness, an ideal. Scientific evidence suggests forgiving others is beneficial to your mental and physical health. In the New Testament, Christians are required to forgive others. Faith in the power of reason, an abstract object. Reason, the power of the mind to think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic. The ability to reason allows you to go from A to B, but it doesn't tell you what B should be. Logic can lead to a B that appears to be illogical but true, or to a B that appears to be logical but false. Ultimate faith is the relationship between one and the irreducible, energizing source of meaning and center of value in one's life. This working definition is narrow in scope, but it is useful. I'm going to talk about an iceberg analogy, the 10% versus the 90%. Everyone has a faith iceberg. What are your ultimate objects of faith? A firm belief in objects with strong convictions. What is it about you that you want the world to see and to know? This is the picture of an iceberg. 10% is above the waterline and 90% below. If you are on a ship and come upon this iceberg, you will only see 10%. What do you want the world to see and to know about you? Your ultimate objects of faith. They will go into the tip of your faith iceberg. For me, one is my Christian worldview in which God and Jesus reside at the very top. No objects are above God and Jesus. Next is my spouse and family. That's it for me. What's below the waterline? I have faith in the scientific enterprise, my doctor, and Merriam-Webster's dictionary. I am losing faith in the democratic process, but I have faith in democracy. Considering Google and YouTube, they are about 50-50. That's why I call them the Church of the Holy Google and the Church of the Holy YouTube. I have very little faith in any politician. I have very little faith in the national news media, but I have faith in the local news. I have many objects of faith. Faith varies depending on the object. Even atheists have faith icebergs. I would hope that one of their ultimate objects of faith is their atheist worldview. There are individuals that have the scientific enterprise as one of their ultimate objects of faith. Everyone has a faith iceberg. Everyone trusts some objects. Everyone believes in some objects. Everyone has faith and doubt in many objects. You are not what you eat, do, or think. You are what you believe. Have reason and evidence for your faith. Faith is trusting in what you have good reason to believe is true, knowing that it could be false. That is, more faith than doubt. Leap of faith is trusting and acting on what you have good reason to believe is true. Leap of unbelief is trusting and acting on what you have good reason to believe is false. Reason is based on proof as truth. Decision wall, believe or not believe. The long green box in the center is a decision wall, which represents a barrier you cannot get through because you don't have proof as 100% absolute certainty. But you have reason and evidence that can get you to this wall. That is, proof as truth. Refer to point 1 in the upper left corner. Reasons can come from the various sources I have listed: religion, philosophy, logic, science, history, archaeology, life's personal experiences, and others not listed. At this wall, you take a leap of faith over the wall to an object of faith, depending on your reasons. This is the blue box on the right, point 2. Or you take a leap of unbelief from the wall, depending on your reasons. Then you will take a leap of faith over another implied decision wall to another object of faith. This is the gray box in the lower left corner, point 3. As an example, consider the object of faith to be a Christian worldview, and the other object of faith to be an atheist worldview. These two worldviews are diametrically opposing forces. I took a leap of faith to a Christian worldview, and I have my reasons. Next, you enter the faith and doubt condition. This is the blue box on the right, point 4. Of course, an atheist takes a leap of unbelief, then takes a leap of faith to his atheist worldview. The faith and doubt condition is a dynamic condition. Most of the time, you have a baseline of doubts that are just insignificant. This is zero doubts. Sometimes a significant doubt will arise. You resolve it, your faith is strengthened, and you return to the faith and doubt condition. This is the yellow diamond and yes path. There could be a time when you could not resolve the significant doubt. This is the no path. Then you enter the yield to doubt decision point, the red diamond, a crisis of faith. This is another implied decision wall. There is hope in resolving this doubt. This is when faith as a mustard seed comes into focus. This crisis is not impossible to resolve. I was in this situation many years ago due to my ignorance concerning Christianity and science. I had a decision to make: yield to doubt, yes or no. After my investigation, my decision was no. My faith was strengthened, and I returned to the faith and doubt condition. This is the no path. There are cases when Christians yield to doubt, take a leap of unbelief from a Christian worldview, then take a leap of faith to an atheist worldview, and they have their reasons. This is the yes path. In many cases, Christians just accept with no reason. This is point 5 on the left. It is an emotional decision. I was in this situation until I went into a crisis of faith concerning Christianity and science. When I resolved that crisis, I realized I better have reasons why I am a Christian. I have my reasons. Can the object of faith be an atheist worldview, and the other object of faith be a Christian worldview? Yes, it can. They are both interchangeable. Atheists have their reasons from various sources, including some of the ones I have in this diagram. What they don't have is proof as 100% absolute certainty. They take a leap of faith over the wall to their atheist worldview. Then they enter the faith and doubt condition. Atheists have also entered the yield to doubt decision point. Some have answered yes and became Christians, and they have their reasons. Test your definition and concept of faith and proof. Brute fact: many Christians have become atheists, and many atheists have become Christians. How does your definition and concept of faith account for this brute fact? My definitions, decision wall diagram, and analysis do. You think you have proof? Then put it to the test. Randomly pick 25 atheists and 25 Christians. If all agree, you may be onto something. If you pick your friends and they all agree while the other side does not, then that's preaching to the choir. That's confirmation bias. This applies to both Christians and atheists. What you possess is faith and doubt. General characteristics of faith and doubt. Faith and doubt are human virtues in objects. Faith objects: someone, something, an abstract object, an ideal. Faith is belief with reason and or evidence that is proof as truth. Do you know of or where to find supporting reason and evidence? Faith is the decision to believe or not believe. Faith can come from logic. Logic can lead you to that decision wall. Faith and reason are not hostile to each other. Faith requires making voluntary choices and acting on those choices depending on the circumstances. Abraham was going to sacrifice his son. Was he forced to do that? No. He made a voluntary choice that depended on the circumstances. I will leave the interpretation to ministers, biblical scholars, and theologians. When a skydiver jumps out of an airplane, he makes a voluntary choice. You will have to ask a skydiver what the circumstances are. Whenever a scientist uses the scientific enterprise, he is making voluntary choices. A scientist formulates an hypothesis, develops a test to measure that hypothesis, collects data, uses statistical techniques to analyze the data, and interprets the results. All of this depends on what he wants to measure. Did you make a voluntary choice when you married your spouse? What were the circumstances? You will have to answer that question. Faith requires risk, and there are consequences. Abraham was going to sacrifice his son. Did he take a risk? Yes, but God told him to stop. What were the consequences? Good. I will leave the interpretation to ministers, biblical scholars, and theologians. God told Jonah to go to Nineveh. Nineveh is in the Iraqi desert. Jonah gets on a boat on the Mediterranean Sea. You can't get to Nineveh by boat. He is going in the wrong direction. So God initiated an attitude adjustment and gave him 3 days to think about it. Bad consequences. When a skydiver jumps out of an airplane, he is putting his life at risk. Most times the consequences are good, but there are skydiving fatalities and sometimes skydivers get hurt. Bad consequences. Every time a scientist publishes an article in a peer-reviewed scientific journal, he is putting his reputation at risk. Most times the consequences are good, but there are times when addendums are made, articles are retracted, and in some cases the data was manufactured. I will let you determine if the consequences are good or bad. When you marry someone, you are taking a risk. Sometimes the consequences are good, sometimes the consequences are bad. Do you know what the objects of faith are in those examples? Faith in an object can evolve for the better or for the worse. Consider the decision wall diagram, the brute fact, and the yield to the doubt decision point. If you do not yield to the doubt, then your faith has evolved for the better. If you yield to the doubt, then your faith has evolved for the worse. But you pick up another faith object that evolves for the better. Faith is the opposite of distrust, disbelief, or unbelief. Faith is not the opposite of doubt. Faith is not the absence of doubt. Faith is not belief without reason or evidence. If someone doesn't know of any reasons, that doesn't imply there are no reasons. Faith is not a method of inquiry or a process. A method of inquiry or process can lead you to that decision wall. Faith does not only come from emotions, but it can. There will be 3 coin demonstrations, and when I'm completed, I will summarize the results. Coin Demo 1. I have a nickel in my closed hand. You cannot see this nickel. Currently, you have faith or unbelief in this nickel. Here's the nickel. Now you know that I had a nickel in my hand. Coin Demo 2. I have a penny in my closed hand. You cannot see this penny. Currently, you have faith or unbelief in this penny. I have nothing in my hand. Now you know that I did not have anything in my hand. Coin Demo 3. I have a quarter in my closed hand. You cannot see this quarter. I also have 2 other witnesses that will verify this quarter. Cindy, what do you see?
A quarter.
Josh, what do you see?
A quarter.
Now you have 3 testimonies. I'm also going to take a photo of this quarter. There's the photo of the quarter. That is also evidence. Currently,
You just have faith or unbelief in this quarter. I am not going to show you this quarter. You will not know what I have in my hand. I'm only going to leave you with faith or unbelief.
Summarizing. For the nickel, I gave you my testimony that I had a nickel in my closed hand. You had faith or unbelief in that nickel. When I showed you the nickel, I transferred your faith or unbelief into knowledge. You know that I had a nickel in my hand. My testimony was true. For the penny, I gave you my testimony that I had a penny in my closed hand. You had faith or unbelief in that penny. When I showed you that I had nothing in my hand, I transferred your faith or unbelief into knowledge. You know that I did not have anything in my hand. My testimony was false. Testimony, evidence, and reason can be true, partially true, or false. They are not proof as 100% absolute certainty. For the quarter, you are only left with faith or unbelief. You do not know what I had in my hand, but you had ample evidence to decide on either faith or unbelief. Faith in the evidence of a quarter not seen. Faith and doubt are opposite sides of the same quarter. Faith in an object can be transferred to knowledge about that object. Knowledge can lead you to that decision wall. I wanted to know the origin of faith as belief without evidence. The furthest in time I found was from Bertrand Russell in 1954. This will do as an example of what an atheist and even a Christian may believe about faith. We may define faith as a firm belief in something for which there is no evidence. This is contrary to Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Proof and evidence are interchanged. Proof as 100% absolute certainty is the proper word to use. And of course, we may not define faith the way Russell did. When it comes to faith, I do not have faith in Russell. I have faith in Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Where there is evidence, no one speaks of faith. This is contrary to the quarter demonstration. There was evidence to justify your belief that I had a quarter in my hand, but you do not know what I had in my hand. Faith in the evidence of a quarter not seen. We do not speak of faith that 2 and 2 are 4 or that the earth is round. Of course not. This is knowledge. Refer to the nickel and penny demonstrations. Faith or unbelief in an object can be transferred to knowledge about that object. Knowledge can lead you to that decision wall. We only speak of faith when we wish to substitute emotion for evidence. Were you emotional about that quarter? Maybe you were, but you also had evidence for that quarter. So it's not only emotion. Summarizing, the first, second, and fourth statements are false. The third statement is accurate. This is Russell's definition and concept of faith, and it's deceptive. How does Russell's definition and concept of faith explain that brute fact? In my opinion, it does not. Belief is natural. It comes partly from the way our minds are hardwired. What is the major characteristic of faith and doubt? Faith and doubt are universal and powerful human virtues. In our human experiences, does everything come down to faith and doubt? Yes. You live with faith and doubt every day of your life, depending on the objects, places, and times. Faith and doubt are inside you. Faith and doubt are all around you if you just open your eyes. What are your ultimate objects of faith? A firm belief with strong convictions. What is it about you that you want the world to see and to know? You are not what you eat, do, or think. You are what you believe. Faith is trust or belief in an object for which there is no proof as 100% absolute certainty, but there is proof as truth. References.